1758 AD, 56:52 AM. Britain's new Secretary of State, William Pitt, implemented a policy of total war against the French in India, Africa, the West Indies and America, as well as on the high seas. He assembled a 50,000-man army to attack the French forts. 1. A Patriot's History of the United States. 1759 AD, 56:53 AM. With 200 ships, the British land 10,000 troops at the foot of the steep cliffs of Quebec City in Canada, which fell to the British in the war between England and France. Astronomers report seeing a huge planetary-sized object passing through the inner solar system. Also, Halley's Comet appeared. It was a bright apparition and it renewed scientific interest in comets. The only known appearances of Halley's Comet were in 1456, 1531, 1607, 1682, 1759, 1835, 1910 and 1986. The 1531 appearance may not have been Halley's, as the actual timing calls for a 1532 appearance, and indeed in 1532 a comet was reported, though astronomers fixed the apparition at 1531. The comet's orbit is 72 degrees inclined to the ecliptic, moving in a retrograde orbit. Like planets Phoenix and Nibiru, this steep incline hints that all three orbit along the ecliptic of a dark star, a sister star that has collapsed but is still gravitationally locked to Sol. In this year, Frederick Norden Lewis surveyed the Giza site at Egypt in his study of the Great Pyramid, noting the abundant seashells and petrified oysters around the monument. The Great Pyramid and Egyptian Delta were underwater for 340 years. Seashells have been found all the way to the base of the Great Pyramid. Lewis also found evidence that the Sphinx at one time had been painted, that elaborate wings were painted along its flanks. This supports the archaic notion that the Sphinx was an image of the biblical tetramorph, the divine cherubim angels with the features of a bull, lion, eagle and man, like the four quadrants of the heavenly zodiac. An earthquake destroys Roman architecture at Baalbek in Lebanon. 1. A Patriot's History of the United States. 2. Secret Places of the Lion. 3. The Secret in the Bible. 1760 AD, 56:54 AM. Montreal in Canada fell to the British. Mayer Amschel Bauer begins his banking career in Germany and changes his name to Mayer Amschel Rothschild. No figure, real or imagined, since the time of Jesus, has ever affected the course of human events more than Mayer Amschel Rothschild. But unlike Christ, this man's legacy would see humanity into the darkest times of human tragedy. The Rothschilds would fund entire nations to make war against one another through extensive international banking loans. Both sides of each conflict funded by the same family, the Rothschilds. George III becomes King of England. 1. A Patriot's History of the United States. 2. The Synagogue of Satan. 1762 AD, 56:56 AM. Catherine the Great of Russia forbids all Jews from living in the country, but many ignored the edict and it was not enforced. A parliament of France ordered the expulsion of all the Jesuits due to their moral character, espionage and insurgent activities. Astronomers report the appearance of numerous black objects passing between Earth and the Sun. These are again seen in 1763 and 1764. This is the 7,000th year of the Anunnaki chronology, exactly 4,000 years after the Great Flood. 1. March of the Titans. 2. Popery, foe of the Church. 3. Cataclysm. 1763 AD, 56:57 AM. Astronomers view the passage of asteroids in strewn fields, passing between Earth and the Sun. By this date, 15 to 20% of all Americans in the colonies were African origin, those free and slave, a larger per capita black population than in relatively modern America. 1. Cataclysm. 2. A Patriot's History of the United States. Note: an Indian uprising along the Canadian border known as Pontiac's Rebellion occurred. Pontiac organised the assault and capture of many forts. The English regrouped and defeated Pontiac's coalition. A Patriot's History of the United States. 1764 AD, 56:58 AM. Astronomers report that numerous black objects pass between Earth and the Sun. Planet Phoenix passed between Earth and the Sun in partial transit. Described by witnesses who saw it cover 1/5 of the Sun's surface. Astronomer Hoffman studied the gigantic planet by telescope and noted that it travelled on a north to south trajectory, passing over the ecliptic plane. This is the first modern scientific evidence for the existence of planet Phoenix, which was so feared and studied by the ancients, as detailed extensively in CHRONICON 1. Phoenix continues on its 138 years orbital journey, perpendicular to the ecliptic where all the other planets, excepting Nibiru, travel around the Sun. Phoenix initiated the Great Flood in 2239 BC, 29 orbits earlier, then darkened the Sun and caused earthquakes in 1687 BC, ending the Old Bronze Age when Jacob's sons defeated the local Amorites and their Canaanite vassals after the rape of Dinah. Phoenix then passed through several times during epochal years of Israelite history, and this appearance of Phoenix in 1764 is no different, as the descendants of the 13 tribes of Israel are now amassing in the new Israel, North America, another last days land of milk and honey. The 13 tribes have become major European nations, and their most western extension is in the form of 13 English colonies. Britain passes the Currency Act in this year to stop the 13 colonies from printing their own money, colonial script, forcing colonists to accept notes from the Bank of England, thus paying interest. This act caused a depression and widespread unemployment, catapulting the colonies into the American Revolution. Interestingly, as Phoenix appeared throughout antiquity, in the same year of its visitations, empires and nations fell from power, and new dynasties emerged. The taxation without representation was the pretext for the war, but the real reason for the revolt was that the colonies were livid at having to borrow money from the Bank of England, thus creating inflation. The colonial tax measures also went into effect, and the Sugar Act, which also placed duties on lumber, food, rum and molasses. The revolution was fueled by the Masons, this year of 1764 being a Masonic milestone. The strict observance lodges of Masonry were adopted in Germany, this being the Scottish Rite system. Historians agree that by 1764, the colonists had adopted a strong feeling of independence from both England and Europe, and the British policies only served to alienate them further. In 1764, Johann Joachim Winckelmann published his History of Ancient Art, which detailed the then-secret excavations ongoing at the Italian sites of Herculaneum and Pompeii that were buried by Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Much of the works and relics at these sites have been withheld from public view due to their explicitly sexual tones and characteristics. Interestingly, in 1687 BC, the volcanism caused by the near transit of planet Phoenix buried cities even deeper than Pompeii and Herculaneum, cities buried alive that were only recently discovered. Nathaniel Davidson explored the interior of the Great Pyramid and chamber above the King's Chamber, and discovered at the ceiling of the Grand Gallery a tunnel that led into the relieving chamber above the King's Chamber. Davidson wrote 1764 on the Great Pyramid upon a stone at the right of the entrance. Also in 1764, the Jesuits were expelled from most of the European kingdoms for their political manipulations and conspiracies. The famous invention, the spinning jenny, was invented by James Hargreaves. In 1764, the first nebula in deep space was documented by Charles Messier, called M17. 1. Cataclysm. 2. Rule by secrecy. 3. Gods of Eden Bramley. 5. A Patriot's History of the United States. 6. The Discoverers. 7. The Secret of the Great Pyramid. 8. The Great Pyramids, Corteggiani. 9. Human Accomplishment. 10. Smithsonian, Feb 2011.